cover crop is a crop that we're using to have sort of year-round cover on the field. In particular, we're standing in a cornfield that had winter rye growing on it, seeded last fall in October, and that produced some growth that then was there through the winter and then started back up this spring. But what are some of the benefits that we're learning about cover crops, Dan?
What we're really working hard to do is keep nutrients out of the water supply, keep them out of the rivers and streams. If we can plant a cover crop and have that cover crop take up those nutrients, they're going to stay here for the farmer to use for the next crop, but also that prevents them from entering the water supply.
Ernie, you've been growing cover crops for a long time. There's been a resurgence in interest, and there's been more science as to why we should be doing cover crops, but why are you doing cover crops here on your farm?
After we planted them and plowed that ground up the next spring, the tilth in that ground was just amazing. We were looking for more organic matter all the time. That was one way to get it. And plus there is a little bit of fertilizer value with it when you work it down as far as the nitrogen end. We've just been doing it ever since. It's been a win-win situation.
One of the things that I think is fascinating that we've learned in the science is how these root systems of the cover crops through the winter feed the bacteria that are in the soil. As the plant then breaks down, when we terminate that cover crop, that provides organic matter that then helps that soil maintain its what we call soil health, its tilth and its good infiltration properties, so that we get less runoff of rainfall when we get those hard storms like we've had here recently.
Having those living roots in the soil provide a place for those microbes to live through the winter. And when we look at a cover crop in a field like this, we see the green growing on the top, and we think about that's where the value is as far as soil erosion and maintaining that soil in place. But as big a part of that is those roots that are in the soil.
What are some of the other ways that you and other farmers are using cover crops beyond just soil health reasons?
If you cut it at the right stage, rye, triticale, whatever you're using, it makes some pretty good feed, especially for heifers. If you're running a little tight on feed, it is one way to get some extra forage for your farm. Either you till it up or you can go right over it with a no-till corn planter and just plant right into that stubble, and the seed bed is just unbelievable.
Generally, when we spread manure, we lose a fair amount of the nitrogen to volatilization into the atmosphere. But when we've got a growing crop here that we're planting it into, that ammonia nitrogen is being taken up by these plants, and those plants will then hold on to that nitrogen and it'll be available to the corn crop later on. And so you're really conserving nitrogen and getting more out of the manure by spreading it over a live cover crop rather than just spreading it onto bare soil.
Another benefit I've heard farmers talk about is trafficability on these fields in the early spring. You've got a growing crop which is taking some of that moisture up and transpiring it into the atmosphere, makes these fields so that we can get on them a little earlier with equipment and get going.
The compaction end of things is always a big concern these days because equipment's getting bigger, and to me it looks like the soil is taking it really well. I think it was probably spongy enough almost that it absorbed a lot of that compaction. And I mean, we've had some pretty good rain since then, and you never saw any rain laying in the tracks or anything. It always, yeah, it soaked right in pretty good.
There's different mixes that are being played with, and some of those mixes include a legume in them, something like a clover or a trefoil mixed in with a cereal grain or even an annual grass. And the purpose of that is to fix some nitrogen from the atmosphere and add that to the soil, and that can be another source of nitrogen for the crop that you'll grow after the cover crop is terminated.
Taking advantage of the symbiotic relationship where those legumes can fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and actually make it available to our plants. Kind of a smart move in a tight economy today when fertilizer prices are higher.
We do, I think, 7 acres, and if you average 40 bushel to the acre, 30, 40 bushel, well, that's quite a bit of seed. We've always grown a little bit of our own seed, but we do grow some certified seed every 2 or 3 years. Using your own seed like that, I think the germ tends to drop off a little bit.
What are some of the challenges or barriers for a farmer to establish cover crops on the farm?
Sometimes if you're renting a seeder, timing is a big thing. You run into the weather issue. When am I going to get the seeder? You don't want to do it too late in the fall. But shoot for September. It gives it that much more of an advantage before it has to go through the winter, and it will start growing a little quicker in the spring.